Hello and welcome back to the MLB DFS Slate Breakdown for Tuesday, May 28th. We're here, we're breaking it down. We got a 10-game slate to go over. We have some weather issues to talk about, some nice hitting weather, and before all that, we're going to get into the perfect lineups from yesterday, the winning lineups from yesterday, then get into weather and pitchers to consider, followed by stack. So should be a nice little wrap down of what's going on today in the world of baseball. But before we get into all that, come join us at LineStar. $39.99 per month gets you access to everything we do. All the props, all the DFS, you get it all for one low price. Come join us, have some fun and chat, hang out, and also on the app stores, if you have never tried us, we do have a free 7-day trial through there. So let's get into it and let's check it all out. All right. Starting with the perfect lineups. On to FanDuel. We got Justin Steele topping the pitchers with the perfect lineup. We got a 2-man Colorado stack and then all one-offs. Used almost all the salary, $1K left on the table, 277.8. And the winning lineup went to Duck Holtz. Congrats on winning $10K. You had Justin Steele, had a 4-man Colorado, 3-man Cleveland, 1 Washington, 1 off with CJ Abrams. Nice little lineup for the Colts. I like it. And like the correlation and all that, now let's get into DraftKings. So we got Joe Ryan, Justin Steele, 2-man Baltimore, 2-man Blue Jays, and then some one-offs. Now, the two slates yesterday between DraftKings and FanDuel were way different. Thus, the way different perfect lineups here. So the winning lineup went to Scott 12 E12. Had fairly chalky lineup with Steele and Bassett, so 2 chalky pitchers. Then it was a 3-man Cleveland stack, 2-man Colorado, 2-man Toronto, and a one-off of St. Louis that literally got him nothing. But he won by 13, so didn't really need it too much either. All in all, congrats to Scott 12E12. You won $50K. One of the things, though, you could have done is a little, lean into correlation a little bit more. Can't really say anything, though, because you won. However, doing a 3-2-2 is going to be hard to win consistently just because of how many things you have to hit right to make it happen. But it worked today. Could it work tomorrow? Absolutely. At least you are using correlation. So I like the lineup. It's just not one that I'm going to play a lot. I generally are going to stick to bigger stacks over 3-2-2 small stack type situations. But congrats to you, and let's get into some lineups for today, or some slate talk for today. Start by going over some weather situations. So we got nice hitting weather in Atlanta, winds blowing out, 80-degree temps, but Royals versus Twins, there is PPD risk here or delay risk. Both of these situations we need to watch as the day goes on. Blue Jays at White Sox, we got PPD risk here as well. Looks like winds are blowing out pretty hard, but it's going to be pretty rainy, and I don't know if they can wait long enough for the storms to pass to just have a delay in play type situation. So definitely need to watch this one. Also, these two games do have 2 pitchers that we would be interested in. Then outside of that, I don't think Colorado and Cleveland is going to really have much of an issue. At worst, they start a little late and they play. Outside of that, we're pretty much good to go and nothing huge to look at. So, pitchers to consider for today. Highest owned is Matt Waldron. 6.2K. Our projection consensus is very similar, 2.5x. just kind of leads the value on this slate. So I understand why he's popping up a little bit, but I've talked about Waldron over and over and over again. Look, he is a knuckleball pitcher. When he's on, he is very, very on. However, that pitch is very inconsistent, and he can be very, very off. So he's a mediocre pitcher as it is. The Padres have won like one game or 2 games while he has started. I don't hate it. It's a nice matchup versus the Marlins, but I don't love that he's high owned. I do not have confidence that, say, he's almost 30% owned, that there is a higher than 30% chance that he's an optimal lineup. I would put that lower, and thus, with his ownership, I might be fading him a little bit. Am I fine if he pops up into some lineups? Absolutely, but I am not going to push him hard into lineups. Can he get it done? Yeah, he's only 6,200. It only takes, 20 plus for him probably to be optimal, which has happened, 3 times so far this season in like 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, 10 starts. So he could be optimal. I just would probably bet against it a little bit. Kevin Gausman, 8.5K, 9.4X. I love this spot for him, but we are a little concerned about the weather situation. So if we come to lock and we're not worried about weather too much, I love this spot, and I'll have a lot of them. 2.34 FIP over his last 5, 3.5 over his last 20. K rate's up again. StatCast data is starting to look good. He has struggled versus the White Sox a little bit, but I'm not worried about this White Sox lineup. He's also way better when he's away. Combined K rate, 27%, 8.5K. I am in, and he's definitely one of the guys that I want a decent amount of if the weather is okay. Now, if we have some question marks with weather, his ownership is going to be lower than that. So it does make it a little more interesting to try and play him at a lower ownership, but then you're dealing with some weather risk, and you just never really know what's going to happen there. I am absolutely interested in Gausman. Not totally sure what's going on weather there. We have to watch it, but I do like him. Next, we got Zach Wheeler. He is up to 11K, but his projection's like 3 points higher than anybody else. And consensus-wise, it's 1 point higher than anybody else. I'm definitely interested in Wheeler. I think he's in a great spot versus this Giants team in a pitcher-friendly park. He's been good lately. He has some K upside. He can work deep into games. His worry here is he allows a lot of fly balls, and he's in a park where fly balls, are not going to be that dangerous. Another thing I want to bring up here that I think is very interesting. We have him at a 21.8% combined K rate, but over 58 plate attempts, he's striking out 38% of Giants batters. I think he's in an interesting spot. He absolutely crushed San Francisco in Philadelphia about a month ago or 3 weeks ago or so with 7 innings and 11 Ks. I think he can do it again. This Giants team doesn't scare me that much. It is the second time facing them, though. But all in all, I think Wheeler is firmly in play today. Next, we got Hunter Brown, 6.5K. It's versus the Mariners, so he is likely your pivot off of Waldron if you want to pay down. However, I don't love the spot for him. And, he just hasn't been that great. And like I said with Waldron, you need 20 plus to probably be optimal. He's only hit that once. I think his ownership is more egregious than Waldron. Neither guy do I really want to prioritize today. But at least with this one, 25.3% combined K rate at 6.5K. A little bit interesting, but I really just don't love the spot. I think I'd rather have, 2 mid-price pitchers than pay up for Wheeler and push in a Waldron and or Brown. So I think 2 mid price is likely more so where I would be going. Next, Cole Reagans, 22% owned, 10.2K. Reminder, this is a weather spot, so we do need to look for that. But Reagans has been pitching unbelievable lately, and I am absolutely intrigued to go here. 32% K rate over the last 5 starts, 2.58 FIP over his last 20 and his last 5. He's been pitching great. StatCast data looks great. Matchup data is solid. Combined K rate, 29.6%. I think he's in a great spot, and I'm definitely intrigued by Reagans. Next, we got Freddie P. Freddie P, under-owned, is a little interesting to me. I definitely will be trying to push him a little bit. I mean, we know he has serious upside and can get it done. And 25.6% combined K rate. He's in fine form. Doesn't really worry me that he went through this little rough patch. He can bounce back anytime. And the Cubs lineup, while it's decent, they are worse away from Wrigley. And Peralta's better at home. 25% more fantasy points at home. Luis Castillo, I don't really love this spot versus Houston. They just don't strike out much. Meanwhile, Castillo hasn't had his strikeout stuff, hasn't been pitching that great lately. And I don't really want to try and pick on them in this situation. Nestor Cortez versus the Angels. Cortez pitching great, but we got wind blowing out. Decent temperatures. He allows a lot of fly balls, a lot of hard contact. I don't love 9.5K Nestor, but he's been pitching very well. And I do think this Angels offense just is overperforming a little bit. Now, over their last 20 games, though, versus lefties, 330 average, 242 ISO, only an 18% K rate, almost a 400 WOBA. This Angels team is hitting very well, and it's not one I want to pick on right now. At 9.5K, I don't really love Nestor. Max Fried versus the Nationals. Nationals versus lefties is just not good. 290 WOBA, 139 ISO. So they have a little bit of pop versus lefties, but that WOBA is very, very low. 21.5% K rate. The big issue with Fried is, one, nice hitting weather. Mid-80s temps or low 80s temps. Wind blowing out at 10. And Fried's averaging 58% less fantasy points while home. So those are the scary points, but Fried's been pitching great lately. Had a complete game versus the Cubs. Had one versus Miami earlier this year. Went 7 innings versus the Mets. 6 innings versus Seattle. Struggled at home a little bit versus the Padres. But guy's been pitching very good. And I'm fine with taking some of Fried versus the Nationals here. Definitely a bit intrigued to go there at very low ownership. Brandon Paft, it is versus the Texas Rangers, but I do think 7.6K for him is way too cheap. 2.51 FIP over his last 5, 3.4 over his last 20. This is a guy that's been pitching insanely well. Just went up against Cincinnati, 7 innings, 9 Ks. Against the Dodgers, 6 innings, 7 Ks, 2 runs. He's been pitching well, and I'm fine to jump back on this bandwagon. However, Texas does hit righties very, very well. It's a tricky spot. But at 7.6K, he can still give up, 2-3 runs and be just fine. He has a, 25.7% K rate over his last 20 starts. So a little upside, even though Texas is a good offense. I think it's interesting. And frankly, I'd probably rather take this chance than go with Waldron or Brown. Last that I want to highlight here is Jesus Luzardo. So Padres have been absolutely terrible at home this season. I don't know what's going on, but they just haven't got it done at home. Luzardo has some really solid upside. 8K, we have him at 2.4X. Pitcher-friendly park. San Diego hasn't been striking out versus lefties, but they haven't been hitting the ball very well either. 120 ISO versus them. 0.078 ISO over the last 20 starts versus lefties. This is a team that last season hit lefties really well, and they're just not doing it right now. So definitely a little scary for the Padres, for my Padres. Meanwhile, BVP data favors the Padres a little bit. 57 plate attempts, hitting 280, 180 ISO. They do have a 28% K rate, 352 WOBA. I think this one can go either way here, but I definitely am a little interested in Luzardo in this spot. I think it's an interesting one, and nobody's going there. He's low owned. Projection likes him. I think there's a lot of reasons to try and get a little bit of him. He's one of the, mid-range pitchers that I would very much consider in this spot. Now let's get into FanDuel. Get over the pitchers here real quick. Zach Wheeler coming at the highest owned with Freddie P. Both of them 31%. Both of them very intrigued with. Reagan's is in just a wonderful spot, 13% owned. I love to get some of him. Just watch the weather here. Castillo, I'm not into it. Gosman, even at 10.2K, I'm very, very intrigued on FanDuel at pretty much no ownership. I think he is in a very nice spot, and at no ownership, I frankly really do like going here. Luzardo at 9.6, I'm still very, very interested in, even though he has a big price pump here. 9.8 for Fried, I think is interesting. I'm a little more off Brandon Paft on FanDuel at 8.8K. I think that price bump just, and the issues with going against Texas takes me off him a little bit. But at least you can notice it, or I can mention it there. So that's kind of where we're at on FanDuel. Definite ways to get different in pitching, but I think Wheeler is clearly probably in the best spot, as projections show too. I mean, it's almost a 5-point difference between the second highest projected guy and Wheeler. So it's interesting, and 2 points as far as the consensus. So that's not as big of a deal, for the consensus projections. But LineStar is really, really liking Wheeler in this spot. So get over to some stacks here. Hope everybody had a nice little Memorial Day. Nice to have an extra day off this week. We got a short week to get over. All right, now, highest FIP on the slate over the last 20 starts is Hunter Brown. He's also coming in a little higher owned on DraftKings. So I think Seattle is a very interesting stack. We've seen Brown give it up. Seattle has some power. They have some guys that steal some bases. I think Seattle's, kind of interesting if Brown really is going 20-ish% owned. Let's go over to the highest owned stacks now. Highest owned stack for tonight, we got Toronto versus Mike Clevinger. Clevinger fell off a little bit, but he has been solid, the last year and a half or so. 4.16 FIP, but FIP up to 6 over his last 5. Toronto's been hitting decent. They aren't that expensive. I understand if you want to go there. My issue here is this game total is 7.5. It is one of the lowest game totals on the slate. While they are one of the biggest favorites on the slate, I just don't love the spot here for Toronto. I think there's a lot of different ways to get different. Next, we got Cleveland versus Colorado. I mean, Cleveland in Colorado. Are you kidding me? I'm all in. 10.5 point game total. They are slight favorites. I definitely am interested in some Cleveland versus Feltner, who has been good, but Cleveland offense has been very good, and Cleveland and beating Colorado should only help that. Next, highest projected stacks. Cleveland, all over the highest projected. No surprise there. Philadelphia is popping up a little bit as well. Philly is... Oh, yeah, versus San Francisco. They don't have a starter named yet, but we will figure that out later. Philly is just like Toronto, where they're favorites, but 7.5 game total. I definitely don't want to push them in, but they've been hitting the ball well, and I get why they're popping up a little bit on our platform. Yankees. I think Yankees are super interesting right now. So they're hitting the ball really well. Griffin Canning is a decent pitcher, but has struggled to start the year. 5.58 FIP over his last 5 versus a 4.3 over his last 20. He has been pitching better as of late, but this Yankees team has been hitting extremely well. And with them not being that high owned, I'm definitely a bit intrigued to go there. Now, value spot for stacks is Seattle. No surprise. White Sox also popping up. I don't love the White Sox spot. I will mention another value stack that I do think is kind of interesting right here is Miami. It's also a leverage stack. We talked about Waldron being one of the higher owned guys on DraftKings, and he can give it up. So I think Miami is a little interesting for a value stack. However, lowest game total on the slate with Houston, Seattle, and they are underdogs. So the implied total is super low for Miami, but nobody's going to be there, so slightly intrigued by that one. Next, higher ceiling play is... Yankees, Cleveland, Philadelphia, all the usual suspects. All of them are very interesting. One of the stacks that isn't popping up that I think is really interesting, Atlanta or Colorado. McKenzie, I want to bring up 2.37 ERA over his last 5, but a 5.48 FIP. The guy keeps getting out of jams that he shouldn't be getting out of. There is going to be some regression there. Place like Colorado is a great spot for that to happen. I think Arizona stacks are interesting. Brave stacks are very interesting. Another one, middle ownership, not going too high owned. Nice hitting weather. They're at home. Definitely a bit intrigued to go there. I want to mention for Griffin Canning in the Yankees, he's been giving up a lot of hard contact, high average exit velocity, and the Angels bullpen isn't great. So Yankees definitely make a lot of sense to go that way. And if the Angels can hit Nestor, hit his fly balls, his hard contact, you got the bullpen to deal with, who has been very good. But all in all, that'll do it for today. Watch the weather as we approach lock. Good luck, and I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.